Okay, so today we're going to discuss about the antibody panel identification. So this topic will discuss the different method and their advantages and disadvantages in order for us then to detect the antibody in our patient sample that may be a recipient or a donor of the blood in order for you to check if that patient contains an antibody in his serum or plasma. And that would also allow you then to identify and prevent your transfusion reaction or even the exposure of the patients with the corresponding antibody. Okay, so antibody panel identification is one of the requirement as a pre-transfusion requirement for pre-transfusion testing requirement. So mean to say pag pre-transfusion, mean to say this is one of the tests that you need to confirm and you need to test before the patient's being given a unit of blood for the transfusion. So this will help prevent your transfusion reaction because of the incompatibility between your recipient having that antibody and the unit of the blood contains the red cell antigen for that particular blood group system. Okay, so we have here what we are detecting for the antibody panel identification are your irregular or your unexpected antibodies, which are your clinically significant antibodies. Your clinically significant antibodies are your IgG antibodies, which are reactive at 37 degrees Celsius. So again, if the patient, recipient would have that antibody, tapos salina mo siya ng blood na may antigen for that blood group, okay, but then we are considering that dapat antibody ng blood group natin is an IgG antibody. So we have already discussed, differentiate what are those blood group system wherein antibodies are IgM, what blood group system are the antibodies are IgG. So we must be very careful and must give much focus here for the blood groups which are IgG na antibodies. Because again, if that is being present in the recipient, tapos salina natin ng blood, tapos ang ating red cell or unit of the blood contains the red cell antigen corresponding to that antibody in the recipient, again, magkakaroon ng hemolytic transfusion reaction. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, we have here the populations which has been eventually should be tested for your antibody panel identification. The first one, as a pre-transfusion testing for detection of the antibodies in the recipient. Most likely, that's for the recipient. Okay, because again, we are considering na dapat ang recipient, ang antibody niya, ang donor naman natin, antigen ang tinetest natin. Since we're detecting for antibody, this is applicable only for your recipient. Another one will be the obstetric patients or pregnant patient because again, they have a chance of exposure because they are pregnant. Since a baby, for example, would have a different blood type with the mother, so it might be result also to some hemolytic disease of the newborn. Another one, you are testing this one for the donors of your allogenic blood and blood products. Even for your stem cell transplantation or even with your progenitor cell transfusion or transplantation. Okay, we have here the different method in order for us then to identify your antibody. The first one, the traditional method with the use of your test tubes. So this is just your indirect antiglobulin test wherein you are testing for the antibody enhanced by anti-human globulin. Then we have also your gel technique with the use of your card gel. And the last one, we have your solid phase, or which has been used here with the use of your microtiter well. So, dun mo kinikerry ang ating antibody identification. So, we're going to discuss each of the different techniques. Okay, in order for us then to perform your antibody panel identifications, what are we needing? Number one, we have your antigen panel cell. Antigen panel cell is just your 3 to 5% red cell suspension. And that's usually came from the type O na patient. Type O because wala siyang antigen. But this red cell here is being absorbed by the different antigen na blood groups. So parang siyang vial. Okay, so kukuha ka na dito, but then the antigen sa kanyang red cells here, usually alam mo, known ang ating antigen na naka-attach sa kanya. So, pag nag-positive ka dito sa isang panel cell na to, so, since like for example, if this one panel cell here contains positive siya for the RH antigen, for the KEL, so pag mag-positive siya, it will signify here that the patients would have an antigen to that. So, only that you just need to eliminate and then identify what specifically ang kanyang antibody. But then again, ang kanyang ating panel cell here is a type O neurosis suspension wherein may naka-absorb kung itong RBC niya, so madami siya mga antigen ang naka-attach dito because we are detecting for any of the blood groups antibody sa ating recipient. And therefore, para ma-detect siya, so itong ating reagent ay madami siya dapat na antigen. So almost dapat lahat ng blood group ay meron sa kanya in order for us then to really rule out what's antibody or blood group antibodies present in our recipient that we are testing for. Okay, then we have also here your another requirement for that. Okay, should have here homozygous expression. So, because again, there are some blood group antibodies or blood group systems wherein their antibodies are are showing dosage effect. So, pag dosage effects, I mean to say those are the blood group wherein they are more reactive if your antigen presence is homozygous. So, like your MN, so dapat ang ating blood group dito. For example, antigen mo dapat is MN, ganyan. Homozygous for the M, okay, or the N in order for you to, if the patient would have an antibody for that, magiging reactive siya. Pero pag heterozygous kasi, it might have here a weak reaction and that might result for a false negative reaction. Okay, another one, what we are needing here would be your patient's plasma or serum because since we are detecting for the antibody doon. So, plasma or serum for detection of your antibodies. Okay, another one is your enhancement media. You can add enhancement media potentiators like your LISS or your polyethylene glycol. Another one is very important here, yung anti-human globulin. So, the human globulin, try to cross-link ang mga RBC natin. Like for example, ito ang RBC natin is your reagent na antigen. Okay, if the patient has antibody, recipient mo, for example, here may antibody na blood group antibody na IgG. Like what? Like pwede siyang RH, Kel, your Duffy, your your Duffy, your Kid, mga blood group system, those are IgG antibodies. So magbabind dito sa ating RBC ng panel cells natin because dito ay may antigen siya. And para ma-enhance ang ating identification, then we are adding anti-human globulin for that. To cross-link ang dalawang RBC na may antigen-antibody complex that para malalaman, ma-check natin or malaman natin kung positive siya o hindi for that reaction. Since what we are detecting here dapat na positive siya in order for us then to say na ito ay may antibody with your particular blood group antigens. Okay, the first method here for antibody panel identification is with the use of your traditional method na test tube method. So pag test tube method, you carry the identification of the antibody in your several test tubes. So para lang siyang indirect anti-globulin testing for detection of your IgG antibodies. Okay, procedure for that, we just be needing here since again we are detecting for the antibody sa ating recipient, then your sample here could be a serum or your plasma. So 2 drops ilagay mo sa test tube. Then you try to have here your panel cell suspension. Ang vial niyan, so kukuha ng 1 drop. Okay, then after that one, you could perform here the immediate spin. Immediate spin for identification of your IgM antibodies. But then again, hindi siya ganun ka-significant is because really we are detecting here we are doing the antibody panel identification primarily for detection of your IgG antibodies and not for your IgM antibodies. Then you add your enhancement media or your potentiators. You could have here your polyethylene glycol or your LIS. Then try to incubate at 37 degrees Celsius here for 10 to 15 minutes. Then after that one, you can centrifuge. Pwede mo centrifuge dito, observe for agglutination reaction. Then after that one, pag wala, then perform your saline washing for 3 times. So remember when we are doing here the saline washing, make sure that you adequately decant or remove here your much of your saline in order for you to remove your unbound antibodies. Kasi pag hindi adequate ang ating washing step, it might result here to the neutralization of your IgG or anti-human globulin, and therefore it might eventually result here to your false negative reaction. Then after that one, after your saline washing for 3 times, you add your anti-human globulin. Again, this one will enhance. So, pag nagkaroon tayo ng antigen antibody reaction, since like for example, ang serum ni patient ay may IgG antibody corresponding to your red cell antigen here, so attach, and then it will be enhanced by addition of your anti-human globulin para makita mo ang agglutination reaction. If, for example, here, negative ang ating reaction, then you need to add your Coombs check cell. This is an O red cells here with an IgG attached on that. So, after addition of your Coombs check cells, dapat mag-positive na siya. Pag hindi siya mag-positive, so you need to repeat the procedure. It's because number one, it might be you failed to add anti-human globulin, or it might be because of the neutralization of your anti-human globulin because of your inadequate washing steps. Okay, we have here the advantages of your tube method. So number one, we have here your inflexibility. We have also here inexpensive na equipment kasi ano lang makailangan natin, test tube lang, di ba? Saka your reagent na panel cell lang din. At yung mga globulin, mga ganun lang. And we have here common laboratory equipment because you just need to have the test tube. Just be needing here ordinary centrifuge, which allows to facilitate the centrifugation of your test tube. Then we have also here the incubator water bath for incubation period. Disadvantages of your tube method. Number one, stability of the reactions. So what do you mean by instability of the reaction here? So after ka mag-perform ng test na to, you need to interpret the result immediately. Kasi pagayaan mo pa, let's say, pinabayaan mo after 24 hours ka pa mag-interpret ng results, hindi na ganun kaganda ang ating reaction. Second one, subjective nature of the technologies. Again, it always boils down to your interpretation. Baka kasi kuminsan, di ba? So, kung hindi ka ganun ka-experience, some reactions, sabihin mo na, ay, positive yan, pero actually hindi. Again, the interpretation of that as positive or negative would highly dependent on the one doing the procedure because this one is a manual na procedure. Another one, inadequate washing, not able to remove your unbound antibodies results here to your false negative reaction. And this is also time-consuming process because you'll be doing your, time-consuming process ito. Okay, it's because diba, remember, pag nag-saline washing tayo for 3 times, sobrang tagal ng procedure natin. So, it's a time-consuming process. Okay, the next method, we have your gel technology or the gel technique. So, parang siyang parang siyang ATM card lang natin where it would have your mga microtubes containing the gel. The gel nito is made up of the dextran polyacrylamide gel containing anti-IgG antibodies. Meron siyang anti-IgG antibody that would facilitate here for interpretation of your positive or negative. Okay, procedure for that. So, your panel cell is naka-suspend sa ating potentiator with the LISS reducing that one at a concentration 0.8% the concentration. So, you don't need to add anymore here potentiators. Just like kanina dito, nag-manually add ka ng potentiators. Dito, hindi ka na mag-add is because your resistor suspension or your panel cells has been already mixed or has been suspended already in the potentiators in the form of your LISS. So, procedure for that, so ito ang ating microtube na gel. So, may reaction chamber dito. So, dito sa taas, dito ka mag-a-add ng 2 drops ng serum na patient, then 1 drop ng ating panel cell or vial kanina na reagent natin. Then after that one, try to incubate at 37 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes to 1 hour. Then after that one, you try to centrifuge. So, pag centrifugation, incubation 37 degrees Celsius, kung ang serum natin may antibody, directed towards your panel cell na antigen, so magkakaroon ng antigen-antibody complex. Kung itong red cell mo na panel cell, pag may IgG antibody ka dito sa serum ng patient, so magkakaroon sila ng ganyan. Okay, IgG, antigen mo na red cell na panel, and we have your antibody, IgG na antibody, from the patient sample. Okay, then after that one, after centrifugation, okay, you try to observe here for what going to happen with your red cell suspension. Bababa ba siya or it will just settle here within your gel. Remember that your gel, meron siyang anti-IgG antibody. So like for example, if your serum na patient ay may IgG antibody, ang panel that corresponding to the panel cell natin as your antigen, so magpa-form siya ng complex. So with that, since ang gel mo may ganyan anti-IgG antibody, magbabind ito dito sa complex. Pag nag-bind siya, magiging malaki ang size nito. And therefore, pag malaki ang size niya because you are positive for that antibody, dito lang siya sa gel natin, hindi siya bababa dito. Pero like for example, if the serum the patient ay wala siyang antibody, so ang mangyari lang ay ito lang siya. Ito lang mga antigen mo, wala siyang antibody. And therefore, since wala kang antibody na ka-attach sa kanya, ang anti-IgG mo will not bind. Pag hindi siya mag-bind, ang mangyari ay, after, pag ginawa mong centrifugation, so itong mga resin suspension mo na panel cells natin, your panel cell here is dito siya, bababa sa baba. It's because hindi siya na-trap within your gel is because wala kang antibody ang patient. So wala siyang antibody, we're not able to form antibody complex, and therefore hindi din magbabind ng anti-IgG antibody natin. And it will just allow your panel cells to rise in suspension to settle here at the bottom, that's true, and that will be interpreted here as negative na result. So, depending kung saan siya na-trap, so usually pag sa taas, 4 plus, pababa ng pababa, 3 plus, 2 plus, okay, or kalat siya, that's your mixed field reaction, but not dito sa pinakababa, not really in the bottom. Kung nasa bottom siya talaga ng microtube natin na gel, so that will be interpreted already as negative na reactions. Okay, we have here advantages of your gel technology. Number one is try to omit the washing step. Hindi tayo nag-wash. Okay, so since hindi tayo nag-wash, so medyo mabilis ang ating procedure. Another one, fewer hands-on steps is because na I try to remove your washing step. Another one, reaction stable for 24 hours. So, ang gel natin, reaction mo dito sa gel, up to 24 hours, okay pa rin siya for interpretation. Like for example, if you are, so ano maging advantage nito? Kung ikaw ay, if you are the one working in the lab, tapos wala kang ibang kasama, so kung minsan kasi, di ba, it's always up to you on how you interpret the result. So, pag ikaw lang mag-isa, hindi ka sure, so wala kang mapagtanungan. Whereas, pag 24 hours, okay, pag dumating ang ka-endorse mo for the next shift, so you could ask them. At the same time, you don't need to really in hurry here to really interpret the result. Not unless na sobrang sobrang stat or immediate ang antibody panel identification. At most likely kasi stat naman usually yung mga ganito because the patient is waiting for the blood transfusion naman. And number 4, we have your standardized grading of the reactions. The good thing about your gel technology, pwede siya, ilagay mo ito sa instrument, and automated instrument, we're going to read the reaction. Pwede siya ma-automate. So, automated instrument, we're going to read the reaction. So, it's not, mas maganda kung machine, di ba, standardized ang reading natin. And that would eventually also increase productivity because standardized grading, standardized pipetting procedure, and all. Disadvantages, okay, so nangangailangan ka ng extra equipment. So number 1, you'll be needing here your special na centrifuge para maka-accommodate itong test card natin. Hindi siya ordinary na centrifuge lang na ginagamit natin paglagay ng mga test tube natin. Ang incubator nito ay para lang ma-accommodate ng ating test card. So, those are mga dapat ipurchase as additional expenses in the laboratory. But overall, maganda ang ating test card technology because it could be subjected to automation process that will standardize your interpretation and the grading of your result. Okay, the last method here for the antibody panel identification with the use of your solid phase adherence technique. Solid phase adherence technique, example for that is being utilized by the brand Immunocore. Tinawag niya ang Immunocore Capture R. So, this one is made up of your microtiter plate or microtiter well. So, well siya wherein your reagents being absorbed into your wherein the reagent is absorbed in your microtiter well, not on the RBC. Okay, so again, ang ating antigen na panel cell natin, hindi siya nilagay sa RBC, but rather on your microtiter well. So, dito sa well natin nilagay, in-attach niya. So, procedure for that, since naka-attach ng ating mga panel cells dito, mga antigen natin, just need to add your microvolume ng ating sample to be a serum or plasma. And then after that one, you'll be still needing here to add your LISS as your potentiators. And then try to incubate 37 degrees Celsius for 10 to 15 minutes. And after that one, perform saline washing for 3 times. So your tube technique, and this one, your solid phase adherence would have here the washing step procedure. Your gel technique, wala siyang washing step. Okay, perform saline washing for 3 times. Make sure that you able to adequately wash to remove your unbound na antibody in order for that to prevent your false negative reaction. Then you add your indicator cell. Indicator cells here would eventually containing the anti-IgG para this will be the one going to bind here if you have your antigen-antibody reaction. So if ang sample natin contains antibody, magbabind dito sa antigen natin sa microtiter para ma-enhance ang kanyang interpretation kung positive or negative, then mag-add ka ng indicator cell, nag-change ang color nito instead the usual na anti-human globulin. So gumagamit siya ng indicator cells instead of the anti-human globulin. Then for our interpretation, then try to incubate that one and try to interpret the result. Positive result would be having a diffuse pattern of reaction. Parang ganyan. Pag tinignan mo ito sa baba, ito, buong entire surface na diffuse pattern, nakaspread lahat ang ating color reaction. Pero pag negative, what you have will be the compact button lang. So, dito lang sa gitna, hindi siya nakaspread o hindi siya naka-diffuse. Then, we try to interpret it as your negative na result. Okay, we have here the advantages and disadvantages of your solid phase adherence. Advantages, number one, require microvolume lang ng sample natin sa reagent natin. So, therefore, na matipid ito. Plus, it would be ideal here for the pediatric patient. Why ideal for the pediatric patient? Since mahirap kuhanin ng blood ang sample ng ating mga babies. So, you just be needing here small volume ng blood from them in order for you to perform the procedure. Another one, LISS reagent indicator cells natin, nag-change ng color that would allow us to interpret for easy interpretation of the result. Disadvantages, since microvolume ito, mahirap mag-pipette, just need to be trained. You need to have the skills in performing the pipetting technique. Okay, inadequate volume natin would eventually result sa false negative reaction. So, make sure that you have really pipetted here the required or correct na volume. Kasi pag kulang, that results to your false negative reaction. Samples like lipemic, ecteric, hemolyzed would tend to have your false interpretation, false result. Another one, you still need to have here your positive negative control. You should also subjective nature of the interpretation. So dapat well-trained ang personnel working on that to really identify that one is positive, that one is negative. So para ma-compare natin, so run your positive and negative control. So dapat ang sample mo ay positive, almost pareho ng reaction ng positive control natin. So pag negative siya, so i-try to compare that one with your negative control.